morning. I'm very sorry not to be able to address you in Spanish, but my English is slow enough, so it shouldn't be a problem. I think what we just witnessed was quite interesting as a sort of a beginning for what I would like to try and talk about. Because it showed how in the city of Buenos Aires you have come now into the phase whereby it is not only just planning, but it is execution. It is beginning to do public works in order to restore the public realm and to improve, not only the street and the circulation, but also the quality of people waiting for buses and the quality and the safety of sidewalks, etc. So, in that case, what it comes down to, and I try to follow the, what was being said, and the word quality reappeared in the discourse that we just heard. Now, it's a very important word, but it is rather difficult for a public government to ensure that quality is maintained. So I would like to talk to you about this because actually I have been honored from 2005 to 2010 to have the commission by the Flemish government to ensure the quality of all public affairs. Well, of course, it is not at all comparable. We are talking about a small country. We are talking about a small government. But let's say we talk about 6 million people on 14,000 square kilometers. So I think, in a way, it's comparable somehow to your city, our region. And so there might be some, initiatives that we have tried to do, which may be useful for you in the coming programs. So, in 1999, the Flemish government, we decided to create a new kind of mandate, the mandate of what is called in English the state architect, or in Flemish the bouwmeester. And the mission of this Flemish government architect is very, very vague. I'm writing down what is the mission statement. It has, through a long-term vision in consultation with the different administrations and all involved external parties, the Flemish government architect has to contribute to prepare and implement the architectural policy of the Flemish community with the aims of helping to create a high-quality architectural environment, and that includes buildings, infrastructure, and landscape. That's nice, as a mission statement. It means that you really don't know what you have to do. So it means that you have to find the way to go ahead and proceed. So to be very clear in the beginning, first of all, this is a mandate which was taken the first. Yes. No. Well, so the first guy to take it was Borthagaray, and I have been followed up by Peter Frieden. They are both quite famous architects, and I came more or less from academia, and I'm an urbanist and urban designer as a basic profession. And I want to show that it's not just one person, it's a whole group, 25 people. So, how did we proceed? And I think it's actually important to distinguish these three levels. The first one is selecting. The second is defining, and the third is stimulating. There are three actions that go together. Selecting is important because it means that you will improve the quality by choosing the right designer, by giving the commission to the right person. We all know that there is a tradition in many, many countries of the world, and it was also like that in Belgium, that, classically, the commissions were given to the friends of the politicians. And, well, the friends of the politicians are not always the best designers. Well, I would even add they rarely are. So the point is, how do you take that away, that mechanism, and how do you try to find a selection which is more or less corresponding to this mission of creating quality? That was a very, very difficult task. The other one, defining, is very important because it is not just because you have a good designer that the outcome will necessarily be right. I always say, and I invite you to look at the work of great architects in the world, that they have A projects and B projects. And that the best of their projects are always done within the greatest constraints. Within the situation whereby the mission of what they have to do is very clear. And it is not just invention. I'll go into that, but I think it's essential. So defining the right mission on the part of the public client versus the designer is a very important mission. And the third one is stimulating. You have to create an environment within the public acceptance of we want quality. Quality is something that is part of our cultural heritage, is part of our economic value. If you cannot convince the general public, but also of course the politicians behind it, that it is something that in the end is going to make you win, then you're lost. So how did we come about? The first is, and this is all my predecessor that invented this, and I was able to sort of perfection it, but it's a very interesting idea. It was an open call for all public design competition, which means that every 6 months the government publishes a list of commissions that are going to be put into competition. And I will go on how the competition is organized. But the idea really is that through that, we are able to, have a very constant idea that all administrations want to participate in that. And that because it exists as a statement, they will all say, oh, I want my thing to be good, So I'll inscribe into that mission. And that they, in some way, give away their own responsibility about how they should choose to the person who is made to be doing this in their name, in the name of quality. So I'm not going to go into this, but it's important to know that all this is based on the change of the law. You cannot do this unless you have a strong juridical basis, and otherwise it will be contested, because we are in a very open market. And all people that are not selected are the first to contest what is being selected. So you have to be very strong on a juridical basis in order to do away with that. All of these things have been investigated, very firm, etc. It's in concordance with the European law of open competition and so forth. So what is it about? Very quickly, there is different phases. The first phase is that you publish every 6 months this commission, that for a particular commission, everybody that feels qualified can inscribe. So all these people say, okay, I want to do it. Then, and this is where it is important, it is the bouwmeester, the architect, that this is one of the great responsibilities, that chooses among all these candidacies 10 candidates. And that's on the basis of their curriculum and of the way that you think that they would be the most then suitable candidates for this commission out of everybody that was commissioned. Then, and that's essential, together with the public client, out of these 10, we go to 5. Which means that the public client is very, very important throughout the whole process. And then the 5 people get rewarded, get a commission, finance, to produce a plan, to produce a proposal. The proposal is not a final proposal, it is a sketch proposal. It is, they have to show their vision upon the project, which means we don't have to pay them enormously, but enough to cover the possibility of explaining that and showing that and already making sort of pre-design. These 5 pre-designs are all presented publicly to the Prime Minister and to the public client. And together we choose the one that is going to do it. And that person is then finally given, the commission. Now, just to show you, we are talking, I remind you to talk about a country of 6 million people, and we talk about the number of editions, each 6 months, and so these are the number of projects during the time that I was in office. And as you see, we talk to, well, first of all, you see that it increases, so I think I was relatively low. But the other point is that we come to an average of about 50 projects. It's quite a lot, actually. And this is the coverage. I want to show you, because maybe you know some of the geography. This is Antwerp, this is Brussels, this is Ghent. These are main cities. But also what is important is that it's sort of a general coverage all over the territory. Just to show you also the diversity of commissions. These are just pictures, and I always took 6, but you have seen that sometimes there are 25, of the kind of commissions that we are talking about. In open call number 11, it's an old industrial building, then an old railway yard, it's a small bridge, it's making a landscape design for a folder. In the next one, it is the Henri van der Velde Library of the University of Ghent, one of our famous modernist buildings. It's a new bridge, a church that is doing redone, an industrial railway yard in Antwerp. The next one is a school building, has bridges. Okay, I want to just show. Sometimes they are very small, sometimes they're more constructions, like this water tower has to be renewed. Here in this neo-Gothic church has to be brought in a small school. This is a complete reorganization of the bus station, etc. Sometimes it's a museum like of the remembrance of the First World War, many school buildings, a lot of the harbor of Antwerp. Sometimes a small little park, but very crucial for some kind of city. The town hall, modernist town hall that is being renewed, an open, very important, you will see the result, 2,000, a theater of 2,000 people that had to be completely renovated. The entrance building for the port of Antwerp, which is situated there, and which is going to be completely rebuilt. And, we can go on, but I'm sure that this gives you an impression. Some of the dry docks of Antwerp. This is important, a viaduct that is coming into Ghent, where a new parking building was to be made, which would be accessible directly from the parking building. Okay, this gives you an overview. Maybe just to give you an idea of some of the results, not, of course, going into the hundreds of things that we had. This is a result of what is being done for this new theater, which becomes also a completely open space underneath for for the urban dwellers. A building of the former post building in Alost, a small town, 40,000 inhabitants, with a new library and the whole office complex. Crematorium, which is won by a Spanish team, absolutely beautiful building. Bernardo Secchi, who won this very important sort of landscapist idea of how could we make an industrial area. The whole case, like the Madero port here, the whole case of the city of Antwerp, 3 kilometers, one in this case by Roa, the Portuguese landscape designer. This is the in Leuven a new park along the railways, which was won by a Dutch designer, and a number of, I hope you can see it also here, a number of these smaller bridges that are across the locks of the harbor and that have to go up with the boats, very difficult technically, designed by Feichtinger, fantastic French bridge designer, and so forth. So this idea about selecting, I hope, through that is clear. But selecting is not the only thing. Selecting should be framed into something that is much more than a quantitative program. There should be a clear view upon what is the real ambition of the client. And just in order to show you what we often have to do in order to get to that, is commission ourselves with our own means, urbanists or urban designers that would make feasibility studies of the potential of certain areas before they were put into competition. Like in this case, this is the site in Kent, a very crucial site where there is to be made, under construction now, a new great library, the library for the 21st century, with new techniques and everything. But the point was, how do you accord that with the urban situation before you can launch the competition? The same thing, or similar thing, this is an old prison building in Hasselt, and this was a school building, and so the university wanted to settle into this old building, but it didn't have enough space in the building, so we had made first by another office a sort of master plan in order to accommodate all the different aspects of the program before we were able to launch the competition. For the Flemish government ourselves, we, for instance, in Bruges, we made up different scenarios for possible implantation of their new seat of office in order to evaluate what would be the best potential. In this case, there is a very famous museum and research center for vegetables and plants in Brussels, and they wanted to renovate that because it's in a very, very bad situation. But in order to do that, we first also had to be secure of what the position of this new building was in the whole sort of area. Since we are basically talking about infrastructure, I just want to go into this one very clear example, which is a case of a new bridge that we managed over the river Scheldt. That's our Rio Plata. not your size, but it goes to 500 meters. And so the point is, how do you do that? How do you find situations? And in order to show you is that there was an existing route which we wanted to double, and the question then is how do you land in the situation which is already there? And doing this again required an urbanistic study of the future development, the future landing, the future way the quays in this area could be provided for in order to be sure to give that information to all the 5 participating clients. Now in this case, it was a little bit different because it was a public-private investigation. It was what we call design and build. You must have the same thing, you know, for big infrastructures. The only thing you can do potentially as public client is to say what you want, and then you want to private people who are, architects, but mostly builders together, to bring in proposals. And how do you then control the quality? Well, what we got our minister to do, this was a fantastic thing that I can advise you, is that we did the evaluation of this tender in 2 stages. The first stage was without opening the financial envelope and just judging on the quality. And only those who had a minimum level on that quality could pursue to the second phase of the tender, and there we did open the financial envelope. Because if you don't do that, what you usually get is the cheapest, the worst, And so how can you get to the best price, which is not, of course, the most expensive, because economics are very important, but the best for the least price because. And so we had quite a number of very important designers which participated, Fighting, Bentham and Grau, rather known, and 2 very important Flemish people. But the one that really won was this very, very simple bridge with, as you see, not only just for cars, but a very important lane both for bicycles and for pedestrians to look at the river, and it was extremely economic solution, which is already there. Finally, and please allow me to end with that, I think stimulating is also a very important point. Stimulating reflection and initiating debate. Exhorting quality by launching campaigns. Proving that build quality is really possible by showing projects. And so, without going into great detail, I want to show some of the things that we did in order to stimulate and guarantee the quality of things that were existing. One, which is very important, is that sometimes you have to, projects take a very long time. And it's not enough just to be sure that you have a qualified designer at the beginning. What usually happens is that afterwards, in the years that come of implementation, the quality goes down because you are not able to secure it. So in order to be able to secure it and to protect the designer vis-à-vis the public client, what we did is to install a quality team, a quality board of external experts that were reviewing the project each 3 to 6 months in order to say, hey, you have to be careful, you shouldn't do that, or look at this and that. And this was very, very helpful. We did it in many occasions, sometimes with small projects like, this kind of camp for youngsters in the nature, but also for very important things like the whole renovation of the railway station area in Ghent, in Flanders, where we worked for 3-4 years with the quality team, which actually I headed, in order to secure that things would really go as we planned it to be. And then, for instance, I think it's important, also politically important, sometimes to launch whole campaigns. We had a very wise minister of education, and he wanted to really do something with quality of school buildings. So he initiated a situation of, with the banks and so forth, to build in 5 years, if possible, 200 new schools. Now, this is a gigantic work for a country like that. It was €1 billion. And so what do you do in that case? I mean, you cannot just follow everything. So we were supposed to do some quality design criteria for some of the operations, but what we also did in that case was many other things. We published a book on what is quality. We had a website with what was constantly renewed, about even going into furniture, about what should be done in order to get good results. We made master plans for 10 sites which were more complex, and we obtained from the minister that, among the 200 schools we would have 1% basically. We went to 29 schools which we call model operations. And these model operations, we could really look at them ourselves. I'm finishing. And I think it gives good results. Some of these schools integrate in the urban side, here. And basically, I want to end with that. In order to stimulate, you have to prove that you are effective. And you have to, the best way to do that is to show that you have results, and to publish them, and to bring them, and to have the media attach importance to that, and so forth. And so I would like to stop with that and just show you some of the things that we obtained. This is the changing of the city hall. Sorry. This is something that I'm very proud of that is coming, I hope. Yeah. It's Carlos Arroyo, the architect, Madrid architect, who really invented, in a way, in an old depot of Coca-Cola, he made the new city hall, by integrating all these structures inside. It's not from the finish, but it's from the beginning of the opening, what you see. This is the new sort of public area in Antwerp, which is very, very effective because of the high canopy. And, this is one of our pedestrian bridges, which is being done in the Flanders. And I could go on. But basically, what I want to tell you is that by these actions, I think the Flemish government architect was able to work as a lever. He could make things possible. He could ignite new ideas. He can be a mediator. And so he is also an arbitrator. And in fact, he promotes wise decision making. And so I hope maybe this can give you some idea of what could be done in order to promote quality. Thank you very much.